Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to another edition of the Con and Bob podcast. I'm one half of the greatest team that has ever lived, Con and Bob. I'm Con. How you doing, Bob?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. I'm really good, actually, because if anyone who watched Elimination Chamber on Sunday knows, we've been having this debate about what a shining wizard is.
Yes, a step-up knee. Well, they're on the ground. That's a shining wizard.
You keep saying that it can't be, that it's a step up in Zinguri if it's a kick.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas in my opinion, and the correct opinion,
and the wrong opinion.
A step up in Zinguri is when they're standing. If the opponent is down on their knees and like halfway, it's a shining wizard.
It is not. It is called
either way.
A shining apprentice.
A knee is a variation on a shining wizard. And I have proof. Not
all right,
just
let's hear it. Let's hear it
then,
man.
Tweeted at you.
All right, let's hear it then, man. What else you got? Because your tweet was wrong.
Proof.
All right.
I have proof from this week's wrestling.
Okay, let's hear it then.
SmackDown Live.
All right, let's hear it.
Mandy Rose faced off against Asuka. And from the point that they rung the bell to 5 minutes and 4 seconds into that match, Asuka hits a shining wizard, which is called by the commentary team a shining wizard.
And the commentary team called it wrong.
And it is a kick.
Commentary team called it wrong.
It is a shining wizard is because Mandy Rose was downed on her knee or knees, and it was a step-up kick. Now, a shining wizard can also be, a variation of it, is the step-up knee. There are, which I believe Tegan Knox does, a shining wizard, the knee.
Okay, yeah. Let's just, so I can tell you like where I'm coming from with this, because a shining wizard, without a doubt, is the step-up knee while they're down on the ground, right? And I get maybe my call of a step-up in Zinguri is maybe not 100% the correct term in that. But I can guarantee you, man, it is not a shining wizard. That is called wrong. It is a shining apprentice. That is the name of the move. I'm going to die on this hill here, man. I'm going to die on it.
This is also coming from the man who called a suplex a back body drop.
Yeah. But I admit I was wrong on that one, okay? That's just my brain doing weird things, okay?
A sharpshooter. And a sharpshooter.
The sharpshooter. We've been over that, okay? We've been over sharpshooter. We've been over back body drop, but we haven't been over is Monday Night Raw. So that's where we are going to start off here today. Hopefully this podcast is going to be a lot more lively than that crowd was, because holy crap, Monday Night Raw, wherever that was from, Lafayette, Louisiana, or whatever it was. Lafayette, yeah. Brutal crowd. One of the worst I think I've ever had or ever heard. Right up there with Corpus Christi, Texas. It was so dead. You could hear a pin drop in that arena. People like Ricochet, Aleister Black, DIY, Johnny Gargano, and Tommaso Ciampa debuting tonight to crickets. It was very, very sad to see. At least the crowd made up for it on SmackDown Live. They were extra hot that night because of the night. That was in New
Orleans,
yes,
right?
And a very good wrestling city, by the way. Yeah. They love their wrestling down there in New Orleans, right? So it was definitely a step up on SmackDown Live, but the crowd was brutal. For me, I don't know about you, because like when I was watching live, it makes you notice how much the crowd dictates how into the match you get watching at home. Because if the fans aren't buying into a match live, it's kind of difficult for you to buy into every single move.
Yeah, to an extent, I understand for sure. I understand that feel for sure. I still, for me, just being the wrestling fan that I am, I'm always focused on the wrestling that I never really let the crowd take me down.
Fair enough.
But I allow it to take me up.
Okay.
Like, the crowd can always make, like, there was some great wrestling this week.
Oh, there definitely was. Yeah.
And I feel like I enjoyed it, but I could have enjoyed it more.
Let me just say, like,
I don't think I enjoyed it less because it's not like the crowd brought me down.
Okay.
It was like,
yeah.
But if the crowd was into it, it would have made me be like, that was so much better.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with that one. just like, when you get DIY versus Revival, and they were exceptional in that match. Like, they were very, very solid there on Monday Night Raw. And honestly, when the crowd just doesn't buy into it, you look at that quality of match versus the ones that they had down in NXT, and they're, if anything, it might be better quality now. They're better performers, right? They're crisper, they're stronger.
Exactly.
They've got more chemistry together. Like, they've had these matches, they've worked out the kinks before. It was a very solid match, yet the fans weren't buying into it. And in my mind, I think the NXT TakeOver matches were better because of how the fans got involved with it. So, like, if that makes any sense, like, going to your point there, it raises your feeling in a match, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that is a tough thing because NXT crowds have that ECW feel,
definitely.
right? Which is like the most famous crowd feel in history of wrestling, right?
Yep.
It's much smaller. It's much more like the diehards. It gets a lot of crowd interaction, and they want that, right?
Yep.
So whereas on the main roster, crowds get loud with certain things, but they're not usually as kind of interactive as the small crowds. And at least you don't notice it as much, because that's the tough thing. If you have a crowd of, say, 5,000 people and 3,000 of them are chanting.
Yep. It's going to sound a lot louder.
A crowd of 20,000 people or like 15,000 people and only 8,000 of them are chanting, you're still getting more people chanting.
True.
But it's not as loud because it's a bigger space, it's a bigger crowd, there's a lot more silence in that crowd than what you're getting from a smaller crowd.
Okay, I'm gonna take that, obviously, because there's no doubt about that. There's obviously some correlation there with like Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. With those types of crowds, very casual audience, right? And like you say, they fill out these 15,000, 18,000 seat arenas, no problem, but it's fairly quiet in there, right? Or whatever it may be. However, to your point right there, man, about those larger crowds not being as loud, I got to ask you, why is that? Because when you see these NXT takeovers, right? Sure, it's still the NXT crowd, but it's in a giant seat arena, right? Like, these are like in the ACC or the Scotiabank Place, right? These are in all these big arenas that NXT sells out. And it makes you wonder, why are these crowds so much more invested in it than the ones that we see pop up on Monday Night Raw, Tuesday Night SmackDown? Is that simply just because there's more families there who don't really watch wrestling, and as a result, only the kids are cheering and the parents are sitting there twiddling their thumbs? Or is it an actual problem within WWE?
I think part of it has to do with, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that they sell, as if they're at Scotiabank Arena, for instance, and they're selling NXT TakeOver, and then they're selling SummerSlam. Yep. They don't open up as many seating
That
options.
is very true. Yeah, that is very true.
They're selling out the amount of seats that they open.
Okay,
so
that's
all of
very
the
true.
Seats are in tighter, as opposed. So all the chanting.
Okay, that's not true. That I'm gonna correct you where you're wrong with that one. So like, this is going off.
But they won't open the upper bowl.
They won't. Okay, so I'm just gonna correct you right here, because I'm going off completely when I was at NXT TakeOver Toronto, and then the following night Survivor Series 2016. There was roughly the same amount of seats open and closed for both shows. Obviously, Survivor Series was completely sold out. I didn't really see too many empty seats there. As opposed to with NXT TakeOver, the only place that they had blacked out was the top of the bowl towards the Titantron on the soft camera side, right? So not the hard camera.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the only place that they had blacked out when I was there that I saw, as opposed to that everybody else was kind of filling up the lower bowl and most of the upper bowl. So that was just in Toronto, though, and that's Canadian crowds, right? These aren't American crowds who get 2, 3, 4 shows a year, right?
Yeah. Also, Canadian crowds are, like, we're known as a rowdier crowd generally.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we don't get it as often, right?
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
More of a treat.
Exactly.
Right?
And I mean, we're going to be getting a treat this summer, right? When we go to SummerSlam there, bud. Oh, yeah. I'm
awesome.
looking forward to that. Yeah, TakeOver the night before and SummerSlam on the Sunday. Going to be really good.
Yeah, I think it's more, though, to answer your question, I think it's more a Monday Night Raw, Tuesday Night SmackDown Live problem than because those shows will be in a lot more casual locations.
Okay, I agree.
They'll go to the Lafayette's, whereas the pay-per-views, they're never going to be like, let's go to Lafayette, Louisiana.
You bring up an excellent point there. Yeah,
they're going to be like, we're going to go to the like New Orleans. We're going to go to the Philadelphias. We're going to go to the LAs, the New Yorks, the Chicagos. They're not going to the smaller random areas, right? Like, it's like, to relate it to Canada, they're more likely to have a Monday Night Raw show in Hamilton.
Yep.
Than in Toronto, but they're not as likely to have SummerSlam in Hamilton, say.
Oh God, no, they would never do SummerSlam in Hamilton. No.
So they'll never do that in like a Hamilton, even though you and I both know Hamilton is a large area and covers a large ground of area. It would attract a lot of people from Southern Ontario. It would attract people coming from the Toronto way. It would attract people from Buffalo because
I was going to say, all in the States right there, yeah.
But
you're even talking it's going to attract people from New York, right? That's not too far away. People will drive 8 hours for that.
Pennsylvania is only like 4 hours, like stuff like that. But you're still not going to get that feel of like, this is Toronto.
Yeah.
Like, this is a big city, right? Like,
yeah, the city feel.
Like, yeah, when you think of, I mean, as a Canadian, you and I obviously know many other cities and whatnot, but I think if you ask Americans or other people from other countries, like, name the first Canadian city that comes to mind.
It's Toronto.
It's going to be like Vancouver or Toronto, pretty much. That's about
depends where you are. Like
exactly.
Yeah, it depends where you are. If you're on the West Coast, you're going to say Vancouver. Yeah.
But a lot of people will think Toronto immediately, especially as of lately with all the like music coming out of it, right? Like Drake, The Weeknd, things like that, like these superstars. And also
you know, Toronto. Like the rise in like sports teams of Toronto, right? There's not crap teams anymore. You've got like the Leafs, the Raps, right? You know, you got
the
MLS,
Blue Jays a few years ago.
Yeah,
Stuff like that will
MLS
help elevate it.
Yeah.
Well, MLS as well.
I know. I was
TFC,
I was totally blanking. I called them the MLS, and I totally meant to say TFC. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, but in the MLS, like TFC made it to the championship a couple of years ago. They won a couple of years ago, and they've been a super successful team in that league for a few years now. So soccer fans from America will be like, "Oh yeah, we watch this. We know that Toronto's good."
Exactly.
Right. So it's Toronto just gets that association of like, it's big city. It's like New York. It's that kind of vibe, right? It's that kind of feel. And really, if you think about it, in America, you think like New York and LA, right? It's the same thing in Canada. It's like Toronto and Vancouver.
Yeah, I agree.
And those are the same vibes of cities.
Yeah, the big cities, right? To swing it back to you, those are the big cities that they'll come to for the pay-per-views, and they'll come to for Monday Night Raw, Tuesday Night Smackdown, but they'll show up multiple times a year at those buildings, right? Because that'll draw the most money. But since we're 15 minutes into this podcast almost, and we've barely said a thing about wrestling that happened on Raw, let's jump into it. So Triple H started off the night here, and he comes on out saying that we are going to be getting call-ups from NXT. Gargano, Ciampa, Black, Ricochet, all being called up all at the same time right there. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a permanent thing for any of them. It felt very like they're just introducing us to these characters, and then they're going to go back down to NXT, and then maybe start to move towards like this brand invasion or these like type of rivalries, cross-branded rivalries, right? Because it seems like it's moving in that direction. But yeah, it honestly, if they were just calling them up just to showcase them for a couple nights, this was a fine way of doing it. If they were calling them up permanently, this was a rough way of doing it. Because what you do is you immediately just say, okay, all 4 of these guys are on the same field, which technically they're not, right? They're all very different superstars. You don't want the idea of fans saying, okay, these are just NXT superstars. If you're calling them up for good, shed the NXT image right away, right? don't have the NXT nameplate on them as they come on.
Yeah,
out.
I was gonna say the nameplate was the thing that threw me off.
So like that's where I'm like, I think they're still stuck down and not stuck. They're still going to be a part of NXT, right? Especially
they
with
still have
being the
NXT storylines. They still have like Gargano's facing Dream
tonight.
Yeah,
tonight.
Right? So it's. And
we're recording this on Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, when this comes out, there could be a new champion.
There could be.
Or Gargano might have. I don't see
Gargano. What I can say right now. Well, actually, what I can say right now is that I know from just hearing like all the rumors and stuff that WWE did film 2 endings to this match.
Really?
To throw people off. And there's also apparently a giant announcement on NXT tonight that we don't know. So tonight on NXT is actually a pretty huge show. We might be seeing the announcement of cross-branded like rivalries, right? Like remember with Sasha Banks and Bayley saying they're going to defend the titles down in NXT. It's starting to come full circle now. That might be the announcement, but with them filming 2 ends to the match, Johnny Gargano might not be North American champion right now as we speak, and they just sent him out on TV with the title to keep the storyline and the consistency.
We should have checked for the nameplate.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. Oh man, if they made that oversight, that would be insane. Or that's just like a little tidbit of information, like, hey guys,
like
Dream
an
wins
Easter egg,
this.
just like a tease. You know what's the one thing I will say too? The way that Triple H announced it, he said, and WWE, well, the second time when he's like, let me try this again.
Yeah, it's live TV.
I love how he and Steph are just like, we don't care.
Yeah. Same with Vince when he's out there.
The third touring brand of WWE, which does kind of give it that feel that they're giving NXT that boost where it's like, okay, here's WWE Raw and Smackdown, here was NXT, and we're just slowly getting more equal.
To go off of that, I remember hearing Ciampa say right on the product, making NXT the A brand or making it the best brand. Right? Like Ciampa was pushing that, being proud that he's NXT champion. It's a tough thing to imagine Ciampa not holding on to Goldie right now because of how good he's been with the title. And it's also weird to think that, Gargano might not be North American champion after tonight. Like, these are the top stars down in NXT. So it does make me wonder if, we are moving in that direction of cross-branded rivalries or if they're just, in fact, calling them completely up. I don't know. But anyways, to go back...
I think it's a great thing, though, if they do go to the allowance of like people jumping into NXT because it allows people who have lost some steam on Raw or SmackDown to then still be relevant to an audience rather than just being completely off.
Yeah, and
right?
I mean,
like,
and to be honest,
Sanity tonight, right? Like, I'm like, we are on Tuesday. We saw Sanity for the first time in what I think was months.
Oh, definitely.
Like, it was like 2 months that we haven't seen them or even heard about them. And I'm like, man, they could have been doing some stuff in NXT.
No, I agree.
I agree, but you know what? Jump other people,
here,
but
just to go back to that though, why not NXT UK? Right? Why not?
That would be fun too.
Like, Sanity would instantly give not fresh eyes, but recognizable faces on the NXT UK brand while they're trying to build that thing up. I mean, Alexander Wolf is from over there, Killian Dane's from over there. I mean, Eric Young isn't, but you don't have to be from the UK to be an NXT.
He's Canadian. He's Canadian. Yeah. They basically think it's a different continent anyway. So.
Yeah, so like it would make sense to see them go over there. I mean, they're not really doing anything on SmackDown at all. So give them something to do. I'm sure that Killian Dane and Eric Young and Alexander Wolf wouldn't have a problem battling, people over in the UK. Like, they seem to love NXT when they were coming up through it. It's, go over there. And I wouldn't also mind if they started treating NXT UK kind of more like also their new developmental, right? Like, sure, you're still going to have developmental coming through NXT, but if you're going to push it as this third brand, well, you need that brand to be very, very solid at all times and can't be having talent who are green coming through the system as often, right? Like, there's been some talent that comes up on those shows that are kind of, you're like, okay, NXT quality should be better than this, right? But then you remind yourself this is developmental. So if they're gonna push it as a third brand, push it as a third brand, but then keep your developmental for the touring house shows, right? Or the or NXT UK. You're talking people like Kona Reeves. Should he be on NXT TV when there's only an hour slot and you're pushing it as a third brand? Probably not, right? That's so you know what I mean. You gotta be very careful for that. But anyways, to go back to this Triple H thing, I thought it was slightly lazy though, the way that they presented them if they were calling them up completely. But if they're not, then I'm okay with the way that they did this. So it's just a wait and see program.
I feel like it was a nice way to showcase their best guys, but they know that they still have some things like unfinished business in NXT. So I think it's still going to be a little bit. But the one thing I will say, it felt like these are Triple H's guys. Whereas the last round of call-ups that came up felt that still haven't been placed on Raw or SmackDown, which also kind of bugged me, this thing where I'm like, how about we decide what's going on with the current round of call-ups?
Especially right before Mania, right?
Better superstars.
Like, especially before Mania. I'm super happy to see them called up, but yeah, before Mania, it's weird.
The one thing I was like, it felt like Vince McMahon was away for the week, and Triple H was like, "Oh yes, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm calling him up. This way, baby, Steph, let me do it. Let me do it. I'm gonna call up Johnny. I'm calling up Ciampa. I'm calling up Alistair. I'm calling up Ricochet. They're all coming up. They're gonna be amazing." And then like Vince McMahon's away with no TV or anything, and then all of a sudden next week he's gonna come back and watch the highlights and be like, "What the hell was that?" And I'm just like,
kudos for that. That was good. That was good. Good impression.
That's what it felt like, though. I was like, this is Triple H. Like Dad's away. I'm gonna take advantage. Like that's what it felt like. Oh
man, you're totally right, man. That it did feel like that. So that's why it's gonna explain why next week we're gonna get the trio of Strowman, Corbin, and McIntyre back together, right? Because Vince back.
Exactly.
He's back, so it's gonna be back to the same old.
Great transition as well, because after Triple H announced that all these guys were debuting on the main roster, we did go into Baron Corbin. He announced Baron Corbin and Strowman in a tables match, and this
should have been the match.
This was a better. Why were the matches for?
Was that not the theme? Was that not the theme tonight? Tonight was better. It like corrected its mistakes for Elimination Chamber, right?
It was a way better match because the wrestling and the storytelling of the match was so good. It had me so much more invested than the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's a casual fans match. We know that, right? That's what Strowman and Corbin are. They are casual fans, or like for the casual fans. But that does not mean that they can't put on good matches, that they can't deliver good storytelling matches, right? And the tables match was perfectly fine. A table stipulation at a pay-per-view as opposed to a no disqualification match would have made a lot of sense. You could have still had the finish that you wanted, right, of the trio putting them through a table. It's no disqualification in a tables match, right? And they could have put them through the trio. If they wanted the trio that badly at the pay-per-view, they could have still done the table finish, right?
If they wanted the trio that badly at the pay-per-view, for sure. But I feel like they almost should have bumped everything back a week. Like, that match should have happened, the pay-per-view match should have happened last Monday, and like, maybe not even a no DQ, maybe it's like a regular match, but they interfere and do something
Sure,
like that,
we would have been complaining that we've seen that already, but at least it would have been a setup to the tables match.
Yeah, which was better, because also I think that the tables match, the way that the story was told, the aspect of Braun having the hurt ribs and the kinetic tape, is that what's called, kinetic tape?
Yeah.
All over him and whatnot, and then the aspect of it being a tables match, all that wasn't possible without the trio putting him through the two tables. So that needed to happen. But they very well could have done something like that on Monday Night Raw, had the tables match at the pay-per-view. It was a good match. There was no interference. It was just a good, solid match.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. That, you know what?
I
like that. I like that thought process of, that table spot at the pay-per-view should have been the go-home Monday Night Raw shot, right? Like, if that's what you wanted to push, go right ahead. That's fine on Monday Night Raw. to set up a pay-per-view for a non-title match. Like, that is completely fine booking, right? So at least we got the match, right? Hey, let's look on the bright side. We got this tables match. It was absolutely fine, and I
enjoyed it.
I want to say the right one won, right? I think Strowman needs to be done now, though, with Corbin. It needs to be over, right? I think that's the finished product. Drop completely that trio storyline. Doesn't need to continue. It looks like they have moved on from it, considering Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush have their own thing going on again. And Drew McIntyre is beating up Dean Ambrose on his own. So it looks like they're moving on from it. I don't know, though. We'll see if they go back to it in a week's time. Let's go on to the Heyman-Brock package, because that was pure gold, and it sold me on Brock Lesnar again.
It was awesome. Nice.
Yep.
It felt good, too. Like, reviewing Brock's history, it was very interesting, because it was like, it was just nice to see this highlight package where I'm like, oh man, this is...
You remember how good he actually is.
Yeah, and then the aspect of Heyman talking and going through the UFC and being allowed to use UFC highlights and that was huge, and that was a great use of that, and it felt like, oh yeah, he is a monster. Like, he dominates in real fights, right? Like, this is a
scary man. It legitimately is a scary man.
Yeah, so I loved it. I thought it was nice. I thought it was we were complaining about last week, or you more so, about the aspect of, you know, Heyman's thing was getting a little stale, and
they changed
this was
it up.
Different. This was different. They listened to the Con and Bob podcast.
That's exactly what they do.
They're like, this is what needs to happen. Con and Bob know what's up.
Hire us.
This is how we, literally, they're like, this is how we can take advantage of these brilliant ideas without paying them.
I mean, just shout out the Con Man channel. That's all you got to do. Hey, we'll work with you. We'll give you all your booking ideas that you need, right? WWE, just work with us, give us exclusivity. I don't care.
I liked it, though. I thought it was great.
Yep. Very good package. I liked it.
I also liked how it sold. It didn't dampen or like bring down Seth. It sold Seth as
that is one thing Heyman is very good at doing. Not only selling Brock, but selling his opponent. And there's very few people who can sell both people in one promo. It's like, when Heyman is on his game, obviously this is a backstage cut, but when he's on his game in the ring, there are few better at selling your opponent and your own monster than Heyman.
He said something about how, like, Seth is one of his favorites, if not his, like, favorite or the best or whatever. And then he's like, other than Brock. And also shout out to Heyman on the aspect of, like, that, how he got kind of choked. And then he was just like, he took the time. He was like, and I don't know if that was real or anything, or if he was just
a way to cut to commercial, and a very clever way to cut to commercial.
He's so brilliant. He's like, give me some, you hear the, give me some water, give me some water. Like,
no, I like
this dude is just
I especially like when WWE does those type of interesting ways to cut to commercial, because the commercial breaks, everybody knows it takes you out of the show. Right? It really does. That's why everybody enjoys pay-per-views so much more, because you get the full matches in their entirety. You don't get a commercial break every 10 minutes. So finding creative ways to cut to commercial break is very important, and I wish WWE would do it more often, right? Like, they just gotta, they do it really good sometimes when they're walking out to the ring and it says next, right? That gets you hyped up for the match. Oh, Sasha Banks is coming out next. I'm going to stick around for after this commercial break, right? But when it's in the middle of promo segments like that, you got to find creative ways to get him off the camera and then to bring you back after the commercial break. They did a very good job doing that.
And it's not during a match either.
Exactly.
Like, which is like, shit, like, what happened during that? Was anything huge? Was anything, like, not? Usually not, but sometimes they're like, oh, this is what you missed. And they show you, like, an awesome replay that you're like, it's not the same. That was a great way to be like, we're not going to waste anyone's time. Nobody's missing anything. But this is a great way to cut away. Yep,
and it gets you excited to see what happens after the break. So,
all right, let's keep flying through.
This was your match, right? This is your match of the week, right?
Match of the week.
There you go. Let's hear it,
Bob. There was a ton of options, but as I said, speaking of flying through, Finn Balor gets attacked by Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush. And who comes out to save the day leading into a tag team match? None
Ricochet!
other than the one and only Ricochet.
Woo!
Honestly, Ricochet and Finn Balor are, it's funny because it's the one and only Ricochet who's like literally defies
The one and
everything.
only.
Right? And then they had Finn Balor, who they call the extraordinary man who does extraordinary things, or what is that something that they call him, like along those lines?
You might have a better idea of that than I do, because I don't hear the commentary that often.
That's what they sell him as a lot, like the extraordinary man who does extraordinary things or something like that. Or at least they were for a bit. So it was awesome to see these two guys that are so talented and so athletic, and like they balance these two different styles of pro wrestling where it's like they can be technical wrestlers. They can do some powerful moves, some like suplexes, some different like awesome stuff, but they also do things that are so unique and so crazy, and these like over the top float and all these different things. And Ricochet, I don't think could have had a more fun debut.
Yeah, I agree.
Coming to the aid of Finn Balor.
The only thing I will say with his debut, I wish his Titantron would have went on his very first night. His first introduction, just like Aleister Black. It's not this. You need that entrance, right? He's got such a cool entrance. So like I would have rathered, Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush been beating up on Finn Balor, and all of a sudden the lights go out in the building, right? And then you see him standing on the. Sure, he's rushing down to help him, and I get that immediate emergency, right? But it's WWE. Show that light going off, right? See that light with him up in the air like this. One and only. And then the lights come on, and he's got Ricochet all in the background, and he's coming straight down. That would have been a better introduction. But at the same time, you cannot complain with this match because it was real good. Tell me what you liked in the match.
Honestly, just a ton of things. Like the athleticism was awesome. It was a great way to showcase it. I think the use of Lio Rush is always great because he's smaller than guys like Finn and Ricochet.
Also, cool note there. That was three people who could be competing on 205 Live in that ring.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I like that they're utilizing Leo's to make Finn and Ricochet like feel bigger. Right? Because a lot of times it's like, oh, these guys are the Davids versus the Goliath of Bobby Lashley, right? So it's like, oh, that's unfortunate. But you get to see those moments where all of a sudden Leo gets a little over cocky and all of a sudden Finn stands up and he legitimately towers over Leo.
It was a cool visual.
Yeah, at least the camera angle of it. Like he's got a good few inches over Leo. So he's taller, he's bigger, just physically as a whole. And I love the way that they use that. I love, obviously, that Ricochet picked up the pin and it was the 630, and that they showed that off, because honestly, that's all you need to do.
Lio Rush is only 5'6". Sorry, I was just looking that up.
Yeah. And like, even if it's only 3 inches or 2 inches or whatever, that these guys are bigger than Leo, the camera angles make them seem bigger.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Right. And their mass is bigger, right? Because Leo's probably only like 150, 160, something around there.
Yeah,
whereas
he's not a lot, that's for sure.
Whereas Finn's build at like 190. Right.
Yep. And then I think Ricochet is like 210 or something like that. So like he could very easily go to 205 Live, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's crazy. And I love just the use of a lot of different things and the way that Ricochet got the opportunity to just showcase. Because that's the tough thing with these NXT call-ups, right? Because NXT are for people like you and I and a lot of others that watch this and listen to this and watch the con man,
the diehards,
is because or the diehards, right? Like we pay attention to other things, we know what we like, and we like a lot. Whereas all of a sudden, guys like this come up to WWE, and it's like the casuals are like, I don't know who he is.
Ricochet's a guy who will pop the casuals.
Exactly. You get to see all of a sudden, you're like, I don't know who. Oh, okay,
that's who it is.
I need to know who he is.
Yep.
Because he just did a full rotation plus almost another full rotation.
Yep.
Like That's wild.
You know what? It's like when Neville came up. Honestly, except I would admit that I think Ricochet is easier to cheer for than Neville was. Neville was more of a heel, right? So I think Ricochet as the next high-flying, mid-carder, exciting first match of Mania sort of thing. This is their guy, Ricochet.
Yep.
He's going to be around for a while. He's going to be very impressive. And
before we move on to... sorry, did you want to...
Nope, that's good. I'm good there.
No, that was it?
Yep.
Before we move on, a little note for you mainly. I found out this past weekend, I think I forgot to mention it to you, or it was after Elimination Chamber, Ricochet and Casey Catanzaro are dating.
Yes, I saw that. Very athletic.
So let's duo. That's the most athletic two people that they could have had. And I'm like,
seriously, it works. It works. You're like, all right, yep, I see that. Yep. Like
it's
like that makes hearing that though makes me excited for Casey Catanzaro when she gets called up, like whenever that maybe 100%. or when we start to see her. I don't know. I feel like she's a girl who is going to completely bypass NXT and she's going to show up on the main roster someday. In some role.
I feel like she's also someone who's going to change the women's division.
She's going to be like an AJ Lee in terms of changing the way that you view a women's competitor. But you know what? She's also in there with some very, very athletic people. So I see what you mean by
100%.
Change, right? But change in a way of bringing that high flying style from the men's over to the women's division, not change the perception of the women's division.
No. I think the change the style and really open up the style, because I think as amazing as all the women wrestlers are right now, we still don't have that Ricochet-esque, cruiserweight-esque.
Well, let's just say we don't have a Rey Mysterio,
Naomi.
Right? We don't have a Rey Mysterio.
I would say Naomi is the closest thing.
I agree.
So all of a sudden, we're gonna get someone like Casey Catanzaro that's gonna be doing like ridiculous springboards or like ridiculous athletic things where you're like, oh yeah, women can do that stuff too.
And then that's going to open up the door, like you said.
It's going to open up the floodgates to
change
all these other women.
You're going to start seeing, well, like, you've already seen it. Like, Charlotte breaks out, like, that corkscrew moonsault from time to time, right? Naomi has the split-legged moonsault as, like, her finishing move. But outside of that, like, outside of a suicide dive from somebody, there's not a lot of high-flying moves. Oh, and Ember Moon's, I guess you could say, her Eclipse finishing move, right?
Yeah,
that's the extent of the high-flying in the women's division, pretty much.
Yeah, and from like an athletic standpoint, you see like Alexa Bliss with that moonsault knees.
Yes.
And like that, but that's like the extent. They all have like one thing that's like, yeah, that's pretty athletic, that's pretty crazy, but nothing that's like their entire repertoire is like, oh, that's the most athletic person on the roster.
And that's going to be Casey
Which you get from like, which you get from a Ricochet, where you're like, that is the most athletic person on.
Exactly. Yep. So I'm very, very excited for Casey. I hope she comes up sooner than later. I haven't seen her complete in-ring work yet. I don't know how she works in solos matches. Just seen her from some snippets on NXT. I've seen her stuff from the American Ninja or whatever that thing was called. And I've also seen, like her stuff in the Royal Rumble there. So that's pretty much my extent of seeing Casey Catanzaro. So hopefully she works solid matches. But from everything I've seen so far, she seems pretty crisp with her high-flying ability.
And like Ricochet, she'll be easy to cheer for.
Yes, very easy. Yep.
Because she's going to have that athletic fun stuff.
All right. Talk about the Lucha House Party with Zack Ryder and Curt Hawkins. I will give them this much. At least they're trying something with Zack Ryder and Curt Hawkins, trying to give them a story of keep losing, right? The pop one day will be worth all this stuff, but this is a superstars match. Right? This is not something you want to see on Monday Night Raw. This is not something you're invested in. The crowd was bored already. This was almost, I think this might have been the turning point for the crowd where they kind of checked out, right? They were somewhat excited, for the NXT call-ups. They were somewhat buying into the Strowman Corbin match, but then they popped for Ricochet hard, like when they saw him do his 6:30 finisher. But after the Lucha House Party, Zack Ryder and Curt Hawkins match, it seems like everything went downhill because I don't even really want to focus on that match. There's nothing to talk about, really, and we're behind time.
I agree with you, though, the exact same thing. Like, at least they're doing something with Zack and Curt that's investing. But at the same time, it was just
just lazy. You know, it's a lazy way of telling a story.
This match could have waited till next week. With everything else that was going on, this match could have waited till next week. It didn't
even need to happen, to be honest. You know, Lucha House Party, you're not building them up as anything, are you?
Sorry, it didn't even have to be Lucha, though. Like,
yeah, it didn't have to be Lucha.
This entire thing of Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, yes, you need that, and they need to lose and whatever. I get it. But that could have happened next week, not on a night when all you want is hype.
All you want is hype. But like, speaking of all you wanting is hype, and then not getting it, Heavy Machinery and Lacey Evans. That segment was weird. Did we already turn Heavy Machinery into Bushwhackers 2.0? Was that their goal? No, seriously, was that their goal? Because I don't know about you, but these two massive men who are goofy doing a bushwhacker strut to the ring is not something I want to see on my Monday Night Raw. Give me these jerks in the ring who are fun to watch squash people. That's what we want to see. Not them doing this and whatever Otis Dozovic was trying to say out of his mouth. I don't know. Only thing to take away from this is Tucker Knight's a lot better on the microphone than I thought. I liked his mic work. His brief mic work, it was a lot better than I thought it was. But let me ask you something. Lacey Evans, because we've now seen this multiple times, is this just a way to introduce her without actually introducing her in the ring? Because outside of that, I don't really know what the point of this is. Give some reason to talk about her without actually seeing her perform? I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that she had a main event match.
Oh, so she's wrestling on main event. Oh,
yeah, she wrestled Natty on main event.
Oh, so glad that match is on main event, yet we're getting Lucha House Party versus Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. Yeah, so glad.
But, yeah, I don't know. And it's weird because her character, to me, feels like a heel. Like, it's a heel as character,
Oh, it's
right?
totally
like,
heel. Big time.
For sure. But this current thing that she's doing is almost swaying the crowd, it feels like, to a little bit more face-ish. Like, on SmackDown, I noticed it, where, like, the crowd was behind it. Like,
really?
And, like, the thing with the interaction with Heavy Machinery as well. Like,
you thought the crowd was behind that? I heard silence, man.
With Heavy Machinery?
I heard pure silence.
Not that. On SmackDown, it seemed like the crowd was pretty, or at least the immediate crowd that you could see on camera, were pretty hyped about it, whatever, about her.
I don't know if that was necessarily hyped about Lacey Evans or hyped from the fact that there was an interruption going on in the match. I think it was more just a hype from the introduction of the match. There was no reaction for Lacey Evans other than the fact, why is she here? It was more confusion than anything.
That was what I got from, like, the commentary in the ring and everything like that. But I just noticed, like, a lot of fans getting, like, excited around her, right? And it might have just been like, oh, cameras on us, things like that.
Yeah.
But
I think that's more likely the scenario.
And the other thing too, though, is like her interaction with Heavy Machinery seemed a little face-ish-esque, because Heavy Machinery doesn't have a heel vibe.
No, they don't. No, definitely
right?
don't.
So it's like this weird interaction of, like, their face, because she was smiling, like, she wasn't like, ugh, whatever, which she should have been. She was, like, smiling, like, kind of chuckling with them about it. True. And I'm like, this, I don't know what they're doing, and she just feels like, what's her name? With the red hair that didn't debut, her Eva Marie, where it's like, is she ever going to wrestle?
Gotcha. Okay, so you're just saying from storyline wise, because there's going to be people who freak out on you for comparing Lacey Evans to Eva Marie. No. Okay, all right.
From booking wise, for me, I'm like, why is she not having any sort of interaction? Like, no character, no, like, storyline, no wrestling.
Well, she's got a storyline. Like, she just keeps coming out and doing nothing. That's all it is.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like, have a storyline, like, with another wrestler. I mean, though, like, where's a rivalry? Have her on the kickoff show at Fastlane if you want.
Well, right? They might, from the looks of it, they might be building towards an Asuka versus Lacey Evans match at WrestleMania.
Really?
Well, she came out and interrupted the match, and Asuka lost because of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say because of it. The match went on for another 10 minutes. Well, not 10, but 5 minutes.
It's slightly cost her, right? Like, yes, technically there was better ways you could have done it, but it slightly cost her, right? It was enough of a distraction to let Mandy Rose come back into the match. Anyways.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that on SmackDown.
Yeah, we'll talk all about that. Anyways, though, let's...
Yes, not a necessary segment.
No, really not right now, especially considering we're at 45 minutes. Oh, my God.
It was a big week, though. It was a big week.
It really was. We'll take our time here, man. You got more time here tonight? Beauty. So, let's do this. Revival versus DIY. My personal match of the week. I really enjoyed it, but I have just, hear me out. Enjoyed it. I'm going to be a bit of a jerk, though, a bit of a wrestling fan who can't seem to make up his mind on what he wants, apparently, to some people. But Revival vs. DIY is a fantastic match. We saw it on Monday Night Raw. Fantastic. Amazing chemistry for them. But why are you debuting DIY versus your current tag team champions? Right? And not only that, the tag team champions who just won the gold, and not only that, the tag team champions who've been trying to prove that they are the best tag team on Monday Night Raw for so long. And you just told us they can't beat two guys from NXT? These are your tag team champions, WWE. And I get it, you want to present Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa as these strong competitors. Yes, they are your NXT champions. But you have Bobby Roode and Chad Gable who had a backstage segment with them, and you don't end up giving a heel versus babyface match that makes sense on their first night in the WWE. Well, not in the WWE. First night on Monday Night Raw. Why? Seriously, this is a match of the year from 2 years ago, and you gave it away with no hype, free TV, and essentially throwaway match to put NXT talent over your main roster talent. That can't happen.
Yeah, and it was because they won clean, too.
It was clean.
Whereas on SmackDown, which we'll talk about, they won on a roll-up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. It's like, why are you doing this with your talent? Like you said, like they faced the Bar on SmackDown.
Great choice. Who
were not even your last tag team champions, but the tag team champions before that. A phenomenal team in the ring. You know that they're threatening because they're a multi-time champion team. You know that they're talented. And it's like, okay. And they beat them by a roll-up.
Yeah. So they're protected.
So on Raw, why are you making your newly crowned champions who have held the titles for 1 week's time, all of a sudden, who's supposed to be the best, like been fighting to be like, we are the best tag team, all of a sudden be like, but we lost to these call-ups who have not teamed together. They teamed together once in a 6-man tag match in the last 2 years, or a year and a half. The thing that kills me about it is I think it was WWE going, listen, we know the chemistry that you guys have. We know that you're going to put on a great match, which it was. It was a phenomenal match, like from an in-ring ability standpoint. You know that they're going to put on a great match. Why would you do it against them, though? Do it against a stupid team, like a random team that's still talented. When you're talking
about looking for chemistry on your first night, Chad Gable even brought up the fact that he beat them in NXT. You have legitimate chemistry with Chad Gable already, and they have both had singles matches. I'm pretty sure. Somebody might prove me wrong here. Pretty sure they've both had singles matches against Bobby Roode as well when he was down in NXT. So it's not like they're new to each other. It's not like this.
I think Kurt Gano has for sure. I'm not sure about Ciampa, but yeah.
Yeah. But you know, like it's right there. You've got a story right there with them being mad that they are getting an opportunity against the tag team champions to begin with. Why not have them change the match somehow? Like, you know, you saw Dean Ambrose change Drew McIntyre's mind on who he wanted for the night, right? Which was funny, very funny. But you could have
get to that. That was good.
You could have had something along the lines of some way of Gable and Roode asking for DIY on their first night, right? We got to prove ourselves. We lost our titles. Let's see, Triple H. We want the best that you've got tonight. Well, I'll tell you who the best that we've got is DIY. the NXT champion and the North American champion. Prove yourself tonight, boys. Right? There you go. There's your match. There's your setup, and nobody's going to be mad when DIY beats Gable and Rude because they're not the champions. They are fresh off of losing their tag team championships, and that is the perfect time to put someone else over because in a lot of people's minds, these are still the former tag team champions. They're still a big deal, right? Especially to casual fans. If they watched the product a month ago and they watch now, they're like, holy crap, these guys used to be the tag champs and DIY just
and they held it for a while too.
Yeah. So like, I get it, WWE.
And you're not gonna put them over. You're not gonna put them in a match against Lucha House Party because they're not as threatening. You don't want to put them in a match against Heavy Machinery because you just called them up and it's threatening. And AOP's injured right now, and also AOP is also
why not B team?
Heel team.
B team, former tag team champions. There you go.
B team would have been okay, but I think the best option was Gable and Rude.
Yeah, I think so. Like if you don't want to do Gable and Rude, you've got B team right there.
Those are your only two options.
Yeah, but then you go heel versus heel as well, and you're
you could do
well. No, like they did. They went heel versus heel, Revival versus DIY.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, that's heel versus heel on the first night, and you're trying to get fans to invest in a heel team. You know how you do that? You put a babyface team in there against them. It's not rocket science, right? It's very easy to book well, not very easy, but it's easy enough to book logical storylines for debuting superstars. It's not hard. You got a fresh canvas, pretty much. Right?
No, the only reason, like, if they wanted to go heel versus heel on purpose, because like they did the same on SmackDown, and it was like, oh, we want to go heel versus heel because then we want the crowd to have to pick a side, and because maybe the newer, fresher people that they don't know as well are more of the baby face to the casual fan. Maybe that's a little bit better. Because they know that they hate the Bar. They know that they hate the Revival. So now all of a sudden you're like, well, we don't really know these guys. They're more of the face to us.
But then you know what that does, man?
But don't have Revival as your champions then. Like, wait a week till they win. Like, it could have kept waiting. Like, they waited long enough. They could have waited another 2 weeks, is all I'm saying.
Well, they should have waited till Elimination Chamber. Let's be honest, with how that card was presented, there's no reason why we couldn't have got Gable and Rude versus the Revival on the pay-per-view with a half-hour match, right? That steals the show, especially when the show ended, like a half hour early. There's so many things that were wrong with that pay-per-view, but also so many things that was enjoyable from it.
And it only had one pre-show match, which was crazy. And it was one of the best matches on the card.
Seriously, Buddy Murphy, shout out to him. He is friggin' fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's jump on though to Sasha and Bayley.
This is just pissing me off now.
So Sasha and Bayley come on out and essentially celebrate. Nia Jax and Tamina follow suit. I think they're probably going to be their first challengers. Would make a lot of sense, storyline wise. But also with the announcement that they will be defending their they will be defending their WWE Women's Tag Team Championships on Raw, on SmackDown, on NXT, and seemingly NXT UK as well. Absolutely fantastic stuff to hear that WWE is advancing towards that cross-branded platform, or cross-branded rivalries. Good. I think we're moving in a direction of a reverse of the brand split as well. But we're also still going to be getting like people on those brands, if that makes sense. Like you're still going to have, your main superstars on SmackDown, your main superstars on Raw, but expect them to start switching over a little bit more often and coming out for no reason. If there's an open challenge, why not have a guy from NXT or a guy from Raw show up, right? Especially when you got R-Truth as the United States champion. Put him in some open matches, open title matches.
And there's going to be a lot of fun crossover things. And I will say, I think my favorite thing of the week that I saw, not from the match, or from Raw or SmackDown, was on social media. Tegan Knox.
I saw this too.
Posted a picture of her and Dakota Kai. And it was it said something along the lines of defending on NXT as well, you say. And I was just
oh yeah,
I'm excited for this because I'm a huge Tegan Knox fan.
Yeah, you are.
and I'm excited for this. The opportunity that they have to then interact with so many more talented, super talented wrestlers through all of the brands, which is great.
It's going to be really awesome. What also was awesome?
Nia Jax and Tamina makes sense.
It does. Yep. And it should stay on Boston Hug Connection for a long time. Keep the titles on them. Do not take them off them anytime soon. Have them battle through their way on both Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. Everybody will buy into that. Everybody. Okay. Then we got McIntyre and Ambrose. Before the match, Ambrose changed Drew McIntyre's mind with a big old slap to the face. It was nice. Drew McIntyre got pissed off. He wanted Dean Ambrose. He beat him up. He won the match. Two guys are lost in the shuffle, though. I think at least Drew McIntyre is getting the spotlight a little bit more, though, over Dean Ambrose.
Yeah. I will say, like, originally he wanted Seth Rollins. He wanted to fight Seth Rollins. He was talking to Triple H and say, I want a main event WrestleMania. And basically he was saying, like, if I beat Seth Rollins, I get to do that. And then all of a sudden Dean Ambrose changed his mind and smacked him in the face. And I thought it was fun. I love that Dean Ambrose is this, like, ridiculous face right now, where it's like,
yeah, he is a face.
Like,
right?
all of a sudden he's a face. Like all of a sudden he's a face. He's not a heel, and he's ridiculous. Like, he does ridiculous things like that. And then
like his other ridiculous thing later in the night. Yeah, like
I thought it was a fine match. I thought Drew McIntyre winning made sense, and I like it more so because, like I said to you, I think last week on the pod, if they're promoting that Dean Ambrose is leaving WWE, don't let him win matches. Like, don't have him win matches.
Not
That's
sure.
it.
The thing is, though, they're not really promoting it anymore, are they? At all?
I know, but if they did promote it,
if they were promoting it, it would totally be storyline wise, right? So, like, to that, like, a couple podcasts ago or whatever it was, like, saying that it might be a storyline wise, it could still be. Right? And we are just totally watching this thing and going along for the ride. It could also be that Dean Ambrose is legitimately leaving, right? If he is legitimately leaving, this does feel like it's going to be a rough couple of months for him. He's going to have some interesting segments, but he's going to be putting everybody over. Yeah. On his way out. If he is legitimately leaving. If he's not,
maybe he's okay with that.
Yeah, he might be, you know. He seems like a somewhat of a stand-up guy, so I don't know. Maybe he'll do the job on his way out.
The segment after the match, after he lost to Drew, was going backstage to Seth Rollins and
yeah. Where were you? Like,
where were
what?
you out there?
Did he just, like, completely forget everything that happened?
And Seth literally just, like, goes, "What are you are you kidding me?" And I howled because I'm like, "Oh, Dean Ambrose is literally a lunatic. Like, he's crazy. He doesn't realize that he betrayed his brothers and attacked him and had this huge rivalry with him for so long.
I know,
and
right?
now he's just like, what happened, buddy? Like,
like, where were you?
You're supposed to be my brother in arms.
His face wide open like that. Like, it was so funny. Oh my god.
Dean's doing a great job in this little comedic, crazy person face role.
I agree.
I like it.
All right, let's get on to the second last match of the night from Monday Night Raw. Elias versus Aleister Black. Elias was the perfect first foe for Black because, honestly, he doesn't have much going on at the moment, and he's a recognizable person who is over with the crowd. I was so wanting to see, like, Elias go to strum, right? And then Aleister Black's first chord hits as he goes to strum. Like, it would have been like, because, you know, it's just like that one guitar line. Yeah, that would have been a kind of cool transition from the guitar to his entrance. But they did a good job presenting Aleister Black. I wish they had a better fan base to be in front of there because that crowd sucked for him. Like, nobody reacted at all. It was dead quiet for Aleister Black. And at the end of the day, you could say it's on WWE for where they debuted them. Right? They didn't think about the town. Like, when you've got New Orleans the next night on SmackDown, you could have probably waited one night. But at the end of the day, you know, it's Aleister Black coming up to the main roster, and it's very
Yeah.
fun to see. Great entrance, the way that he sat up as well, off to the side of the ramp, something different, keeps him, you know, standing out on his own. You don't see anything like that anywhere else in WWE, so it's one of a kind, and it's good to see. He'll definitely be pushed hard, in my opinion. I think out of all the 4 superstars to be called up, he's the most likely one to be staying around for good, I think. He's been presented in that way that he is going to be sticking around, from his entrance to who he's been beating up. Yeah, I think so.
Potentially Ricochet as well.
Yep.
Just because they're not champions anymore.
It's very easy to call them up at the moment.
It's easy to just have them maybe have a few more little things in NXT, but
one more takeover.
Like basically, one more takeover. And just like it's kind of done. Put over someone in NXT, right, as they normally do when they're headed to the main roster.
Well, yeah, you're talking people like Matt Riddle, Keith Lee, these guys, the next future of NXT. They need some big wins down there. And honestly, a Matt Riddle versus Aleister Black match gets me a little excited, you know.
Oh, just from a strike, like a face versus face striking standpoint would be. Just like have it play off where like it's like I'm the best striker, and then all of a sudden like Riddle's music hits, or vice versa, Black's music, and then it's like that's just a match that you can have that you're like, this is
it's one of those matches that can open up the takeover. You know, there's no title on the line, but damn, you want to see it, and then it should end, you know, with Matt Riddle going over Black or whatever.
Exactly.
To put him.
Back to the Black and Elias match. Yeah, I thought the crowd was a bit weak. I thought I focused on the match itself more so. I enjoyed it. I
enjoyed it too. Yeah,
it was good. I thought obviously Black needs to win. I liked the finish. I liked how it was like just a nice out of nowhere-esque Black Mass. And
I'm remembering this correctly. Elias hit a flying knee as Black came down, right in the corner. Like he flew a little bit. Like he jumped up as Black was coming down and connected him with a knee, I think.
Yeah, I think he hit something, and then Black, I think he went to do something, and Black like dodged it with a spin, and then like spun through into the Black Mass. So it was kind of just like boom. Oh, there it is.
Great finishing move, by the way.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
And like watching the replay in slow motion of the foot coming and just
boom.
It's a great way to see, like, oh, this dude is a striker. And also, he has high-flying abilities. They did the moonsault to the outside, was it?
Yep.
And things like that. And they do all those things. And from Elias' standpoint, though, I think it's tough because, like, Elias is so over. I think it's okay for him to lose, that the crowd
I agree.
will be behind him. But on the same point, as an Elias fan, I'm like, oh, I want him to win. Why are you booking him against an up-and-comer that you want to put over? But at the same time, like, I get it.
Elias
he doesn't
was in that
wrestle
spot,
as much. He will help from a name standpoint. It helps put him over, everything along those lines. Also, quick shout out to Elias's social media, because if you follow him on Instagram, watch his Instagram stories. This past week, all I've seen is just people, men, women, anything, tweeting at him or posting at him the most thirsty-esque comments. and he posts them to his Instagram story. He's hilarious.
Oh, that's funny.
I didn't
know that.
It's the funniest thing.
All right, I'll be giving that a follow.
Yeah, watch it after. It's amazing. Yeah, moving on though. Did you have anything to add?
No, I'm very impressed by Black. I think he's gonna be a star on this main roster.
Yeah, and he's a great face because he's different, and he's great to represent the different.
Yes.
Right? Like almost like what Paige had, right? Like where it's like, that's someone that's different. I'm different. I can feel that, right? Like one of the biggest things was when he won, quick story, was he won his NXT title. And if you follow him on social, I follow him on Instagram, and he posted this picture of him with the championship and this whole big blurb about like him as a person, not as Aleister Black.
He's overcome a lot of stuff.
And how much like he's battled with depression and anxiety and all these things. It's like, and that's so relatable right now. And I've got friends like that. And one of my good friends is a wrestling person that, like, I know he's gone through some of that. I sent him this and he legitimately just responded to me, "Thank you. I needed this."
That's good to hear.
And I was like, that makes me feel good. That, like, I know that someone who I love, who I care about, that battles from shit like this, like that, goes through stuff like this, can just see that and be like, oh, that I have someone to relate to that goes through that, because he doesn't hide it and he has that vibe even in the ring. And he's the type of guy that could cut a promo about it.
He legitimately wears it on his sleeve. Like,
exactly.
That's legitimately what he does. Great. Great. Great
big
to
things
see.
to come for Alistair.
Yep.
Main event.
Ronda Rousey versus Ruby Riott. The match that should have been at Elimination Chamber.
Thank you.
Again, WWE booking this 1 week too late.
It's ridiculous.
It's just, you're trying to build up. I get why you had the squash match in front of Charlotte, right? But then you go the following night and Ruby Riott's able to take you for 15, 17 minutes, however long it was. I don't know.
In a great match.
In a very good match. I enjoyed it. Ruby Riott looked like a star. And here's also a little information right here that was cool. The match was originally supposed to be another squash match, but with Alexa Bliss taking this position. And at the last moment, they didn't feel that Bliss was going to be able to give Ronda Rousey a good 15-minute match. So that shows you how valued Ruby Riott is backstage, and that's really good to hear.
Yeah.
That she was valued that high for one night after getting squashed to go out there and deliver a main event quality match. So
yes.
It was good to see for
100%.
Ruby Riott. Her stock has increased. This is one of those things where she recovered from her loss at Elimination Chamber really quickly. So kudos to WWE for at least giving us back a strong Ruby Riott. But you didn't need to give us a weak one in the first place. That match should have been at Elimination Chamber, and not a single person would be thinking, man, Ruby Riott did not deserve to be in that match. Not a single person.
The thing that frustrates me with it is how good of a match it was. That the thing that frustrates me is there are fans that only pay attention to the pay-per-views and don't watch the weekly stuff. So there's going to be fans that all of a sudden Ruby's builds herself back up and we're like, oh no, this is a star. And the next pay-per-view rolls around and they'll be like, oh, that was the girl who lost in like 14 seconds.
Exactly. When you're talking about casual fans, you got to be careful what you present to them. You really do.
There's that, and I hated the defense that they gave the commentary team of she didn't have Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan out there last night because they had a match of their own. The match of their own started the night.
Yep.
This match happened much later.
They were first eliminated too, correct? The Riot Squad?
I believe
I might be misquoting that, but I think they might have been the first eliminated. They're one of the first two teams eliminated.
Yeah. Oh no, Naomi and
right,
and Carmella,
and then they were second.
I think Riot Squad and Nia.
Anyways, doesn't matter.
Oh no, Iconics were second. They were the third team eliminated.
Okay, all right.
But still, they were eliminated in the earlier half of the match or whatever.
Yep.
So it's like, and they didn't take a lot of ridiculous damage. Like there weren't spots where it's like, oh man, like Liv or Sarah are dead. There was nothing that was like, oh, they can't be at ringside for Ruby.
Yeah.
So it was a stupid defense, but this match itself, had there not have been a few other matches this week, this would have been my match of the week.
I really, really enjoyed it. Big shout out to Sarah Logan for catching Ronda Rousey and saving her off that fall. Like I think you saw that, right, where she slipped off the top turnbuckle. Yeah. Like, I mean, honestly, it's gonna happen, right? Botches happen, especially for somebody who is still relatively new to wrestling and delivering for how new she is. Like, she has done an amazing job. But Sarah Logan showing how big of a pro she actually is. I'm very high on Sarah Logan. I think she's awesome. And I think that that just proved right there, because Ronda Rousey, as soon as she got caught there by Sarah, immediately turned over and put her head right down to her, basically saying thank you for essentially saving me, because that could have been nasty. Like, it could have hurt Liv Morgan, it could have hurt Sarah Logan, and it could have hurt Ronda Rousey. And Sarah Logan single-handedly saved that thing. So kudos to her for doing that. She impressed me there, showing how safe of a worker she can be. So that's good. But yeah, should have happened at Elimination Chamber. It really should have. Anything else to add on to that?
No, just Ruby. I love Ruby.
Beautiful. All right.
She's great.
So let's go on over to SmackDown Live from New Orleans. A much better crowd, thank God. So, jumping right into it. Shane McMahon starting out in the ring, interrupted by The Miz. Miz out there pouring his heart and soul out to Shane, apologizing for losing the tag team titles and essentially begging for a rematch with him, right? He told him he used them, but now they want a rematch. Out come the Usos, cut a great promo on Shane O'Mac, because they're two of the best. And now we've got a match set up at the Fastlane, which the fans did not like, but a match at Fastlane, Shane O'Mac, The Miz versus the Usos one more time for the tag team championships. It's a good setup. I'm invested in this feud. I want to see, what happens in front of Miz's dad. I think there's going to be something shady involving his dad. I don't know whether it's shady involving his dad, but there might be something Shane snapping on his dad, or Miz's dad trying to get involved in this match somehow, and ends up being the catalyst for the heel turn of Shane McMahon. I don't know.
I think this is a great, because I feel like the Shane versus Miz thing is like, that's a WrestleMania thing, just because Shane's going to be at Mania. He always needs it. He's basically the Undertaker at this point, where it's like, I need a WrestleMania match. And we're like, okay, we'll give you one of the best superstars. You're going to lose, but it's against one of the best superstars.
Yep.
And I think it's like, they've been teasing it. And I think this was the right move, because had they have just lost the titles at Fastlane, it's like, okay.
Well, you know what it does is it gets us closer to WrestleMania. If you have them turn right now, that emotion is gone in 2-3 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Like WWE fans, Daniel Bryan says it best, are fickle. We have very short attention spans for what we want in the ring and who we want to support for, with our cheers, with our boos. That is WWE fans. We are, in fact, fickle. So if you get a turn, like a heel turn, like on Shane McMahon, it needs to be closer to the show of shows. It needs to be on a bigger stage so people remember it and care about it. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen at Fastlane. It feels like it's going in that direction. Miz is getting babyface chants like none other.
Oh my God.
I feel for him. Yeah, Mr. Miz. I feel for Miz. Like his only goal in life was to make his dad proud. All right, like hearing that resonates so much with so many people. And you just care about the Miz, and you want to see him succeed. You want to see him, make his dad proud now in this story. Like, he is a full-blown babyface, and that is a great compliment to Miz, who his first time as a babyface wasn't able to get over with the crowd, and he is one of the best heels we have ever seen in the WWE. So, great job, Miz. You are proving once again you are a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and last thing about this, before we move on, you know how much I love Miz. He's my favorite, right? And in WWE right now, at least. And I was watching this segment and hearing Miz talk, and all I thought is, damn, he's so good. Like, he's so good. He's like, because that's what I get invested. I get invested in the story of it, and then like getting to see the story in the ring, the athleticism in the ring, and everything. I'm like, but that's like where that helps you get invested in the story in the ring. And there's few people better at it than Miz. And he's being able to be an amazing face. I think it's perfect. The aspect of, listen, this is the only time that my dad's ever said that he was proud of me. Like, I almost like, I need you, Shane. Like, I need you to make my father proud, and I want to do it. And, like, you have the power, like, please. And it's like, he's being sneaky, but in the aspect of you have the power to make a
like
match.
he's still the Miz, right? Like you can't forget that he's gonna be a weasel at some point, right?
But
it's
fans aren't like, that's a dick move, you're a heel. Fans are like, yeah, just do the match, Shane, like make it. Come on, help him out. And I'm loving it. And he's like, yeah, this is my real purpose now. Like I want us as a team and whatever. And superstars lose in their hometown. Because it especially face superstars because it helps build them up more and more.
Once again, going back to crowd reactions, how it can raise your entertainment, right? If you get them over as a baby face, create sympathy, you get a bigger pop down the line.
So think about how much of a pop he's going to get at Fastlane when Shane McMahon hopefully betrays him in Cleveland in front of his father. There's
going to be
literally
boos.
Getting chills thinking about this.
Like this
because that is
great.
Amazing storytelling.
It really will be. It's got to happen. It's set up too perfectly not to happen.
Exactly.
Has to happen.
All right,
yep.
Let's
Black versus Andrade.
It was great, though. I'm pumped.
Yep. Speaking of great, Black versus Andrade. Very, very solid match. Right up there for my match of the week as well. These guys have amazing chemistry from back down in NXT. Those battles over the NXT title are going to go down in NXT history. Fantastic stuff here tonight. A little shorter. Makes you want more in the future. This is one of those matches, though, again, where you're kind of like, did Andrade need to be the guy he was facing? Because Andrade is just coming off of what was seemingly a huge push after beating Rey Mysterio not once, not twice, but 3 times. That was massive. And then going into last week, he was supposed to have another match against Mysterio, but that got cut due to time restraints. So it's one of those things you're like, I hope WWE has not all of a sudden forgotten about Andrade because of all these new call-ups. I'm hoping this is a one-off, 1 week, and he goes back to his feud with Rey Mysterio in the future for whatever reason, right? To see one more match at Fastlane, maybe. I don't know. But yes, I enjoyed the match. Questionable opponent. Very good match. Nice to see Zelina Vega out there, though, rooting on her husband, even though she's dating, or she's married to Aleister Black, right? So.
Oh, really?
Did you not know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. Zelina Vega married to Aleister Black, so that's kind of a cool little thing with her being out there for Andrade and also Aleister Black. So it's a cool little storytelling thing there. I like that. So maybe there's a reason why Andrade was his first opponent after all.
I'm just gonna be smiling like an idiot for the rest of this podcast now. That's amazing.
They're pretty cute together, man. They're pretty cute together.
This felt like the same thing as the DIY versus Revival.
Yep.
Where it's like, you shouldn't have booked it against that. Like, I get it. It felt like it's like, yeah, but they have chemistry. Like, we know that they can put on great matches that will get the crowd invested and pay attention and be like, oh, wow, these guys can really go. I get it. But you have to think about long term of like, Andrade was hot. Like they very easily could have made the main event just a tag team match, not a 6-man, taken Jeff Hardy out of it, taken Samoa Joe out of it, and had Joe versus Black.
On the first, would you want that though on your first night? That seems like a match you would build up to. I don't know if I would do Joe versus Black on the first night.
I know, but I like the other option would be like Randy Orton.
Well,
you do like a Shinsuke, or
I was thinking Rusev. I was thinking Rusev.
Or Rusev.
He would have been a better idea.
Someone like that would have been good too.
Yeah, Shinsuke would make sense, right? Like Shinsuke and Black, that would actually get me pretty excited. I wouldn't care too much for Shinsuke's loss because he loses a lot. He doesn't have a lot of momentum going on. Yeah, Shinsuke wouldn't have been bad. Rusev is right in that same ballpark. I guess Andrade is a tier up though on them right now, I would think.
Which is almost why I threw it to Samoa Joe.
But that's a tier too high. It's just
I know,
you
wouldn't remove Randy Orton either from that match, though, just because of the Randy AJ stuff right
and
now.
The only other one that you could get along really with is a face versus face match with Jeff Hardy.
Yeah,
that would really be. It's weird. You wouldn't want to present that on the first night, especially considering you're trying to get fans to root for Black, right?
Yeah, especially not who Jeff Hardy, who's like the biggest babyface in history.
Yeah.
Like that guy can literally come to the ring loaded and people are like, we love him.
Yeah.
My child cheers for him. And I'm like, that guy is high as can be.
Oh, man. All right, let's move on, though, to the second showing from DIY in this short week. It was Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa defeating the Bar in great action. We already touched on it earlier. We both think this was the right call for who they should be facing on SmackDown. The roll-up win protects the Bar. It creates some intrigue moving forward with them. It doesn't hurt anybody. And it actually, in a way, creates a story moving forward for both of them. That is the way matches should always be booked, because WWE has always said this, that wins and losses don't matter. So if wins and losses don't matter, give us stories for both the winners and the losers out of a match, right? It's nice to see, though, that DIY did get the win as they continued their string of momentum. And, yeah, just the right decision. One little thing here, though, with this match. Tommaso Ciampa, he hit that sunset flip bomb, and his knees just buckled. Sheamus looked like he was in some pain after that. Tommaso Ciampa was in some pain.
Right?
Yeah.
Like he landed on his leg as he came through. He landed on like the knee leg area, and it bent weird.
Yeah,
if they showed it in slow motion, you would have seen like, oh god.
Oh yeah,
I watched it in full motion and was like, oh my god.
I watched it on that. Well, I was watching obviously live, but I do my thing with streaming. I sometimes miss some things like that. I was watching it on the Botch Guy, that YouTube channel, and he slowed it down, and it did not look good at all. So fingers crossed, he looks to be okay, right? But fingers crossed, because I believe that was the same knee that kept him sidelined for 9 months. So very, very scary stuff there. And it just goes to show how dangerous wrestling really is. At any given point, your feet are a half an inch out of the way where they should be, and you can buckle your entire leg. Like, it's such a dangerous sport. To anybody listening thinking to start it, make sure you get proper training and don't go out there and try to do stupid stuff that you aren't ready for, right? These are the pros. They are the best in the business, and even they get hurt from time to time. So very dangerous sport to be involved in.
Good match, though. Yep. Better booking than the Raw one, and really fun match. I'm hopeful for the Ciampa injury, because not hoping that he gets injured.
Hopeful that he's not.
Hopeful that he's okay.
Good.
Because I was like, oh shoot, he got the tag with Johnny. There's going to be like a quick finish coming up. And then they went for a couple more minutes. And then I was like, okay, that's fine. Maybe Johnny will like have to fight it off 1v2 basically and pick up the win. And then the literal shocker of the week, arguably to me, was, other than the announcement of, hey, listen to these NXT guys that are coming up, was Ciampa breaking up that pinfall.
Yeah.
After that, I was like, oh, okay, well, he had enough in him that he got up, got in the ring, and broke up a pinfall.
That was like one of the closest breakups of a pinfall I've ever seen as well. Like, it was so well done. And
they did the same thing on Raw as well. Also, shout out, because they did the exact same thing where I was like, Johnny looked like, because you can usually see a guy getting ready to kick out, and I'm like, Johnny looked like he was willing to screw the plan of them winning, because he knew, okay, there's supposed to be a breakup here, and if I get pinned 3, I'm not kicking out, because there's supposed to be a breakup, and that's just what it is. And I'm like, that dude is dedicated and a monster.
What you and me,
intelligent.
We talk about the little things all the time, and that is something that Johnny Gargano does better than most, is the little things, facial expressions. Did you watch, I wasn't sure if this was aired on TV or if it was just on YouTube that I saw it, but Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, they were cutting a promo backstage after their win. Yeah, so it's totally on YouTube. And Johnny Gargano, after he finished cutting his promo, Tommaso Ciampa took over, cutting his same shtick, saying, like, I'm the greatest sports entertainer to ever live. As Ciampa is holding that title close to his chest, Johnny Gargano did not take his eyes off the title. Didn't remove his eyes for even a second. Just right down there, still looking right at it. Those are the little things that you catch when you're watching that are like, oh my God, this guy might not be really in Tommaso Ciampa's back pocket right now. Like, is he working him at this moment? Sort of thing. So it's it is so cool to see those little things that he does, from not kicking out of pinfalls when there's supposed to be a breakup, to the way that he enters the ring. Even Johnny Gargano's a star, man. Oh, he's so good.
Few little things about it I would have liked to see is, and this is just like hopeful dreaming, but maybe it's going to happen in weeks to come if they're continuously up. Just like the smallest of interactions to tease for the true like hardcore fans like ourselves and whatnot, of maybe just like Gargano passing by Andrade. Or Gargano passing by Daniel Bryan.
Yes.
Because that's a huge match where people are like, I would love to see that. Just like the littlest thing of like Daniel Bryan walking past with Rowan and just like looking over at them and they just look at him. Because that little thing of like, because people who know Johnny Wrestling and who love him since day one have been like, him versus Daniel Bryan would be one of the most technically best matches I think anyone will ever see.
Like
to the point of like the Ricky Steamboat versus Ric Flair-esque matches, right? Like where you're like, that's a match.
In theory.
And yeah, on paper, ideally, it just makes sense that it would be amazing.
Yep, I absolutely.
So I hope that we get to see little things like that. But you know, you can't have everything all at once, right?
Yep, exactly. Let's talk about a shocker from this week. Mandy Rose versus Asuka, and Mandy Rose defeating Asuka after a, like you brought up, somewhat of a distraction from Lacey Evans, but the match still went on a little bit after. Mandy Rose, though, she has climbed up this card. And she continues to keep up pace with, you know, some of the top tier performers in the WWE. No, she's not going to put on you a 5-star classic. Not right now, at least. But she has a way of delivering high impact moves, making things look vicious. And she has an extra little snap to, you know, like her suplexes or her kicks, right? And she's got that viciousness to her. And now she's got a win over the women's championship, or women's champion in Asuka. That's massive. What's next for Mandy Rose? A match at Fastlane, you think?
I think it's a title match at Fastlane. Asuka's going to win.
Yep.
But I think it's a match at Fastlane that is because she has a win over the champion.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, well, yeah, I beat you once. I deserve a chance at your title. And it keeps Asuka strong to an extent because like she was distracted at the one point and it was a roll-up win. So it's like, okay, she didn't beat her. It was like, you know, roll-ups happen.
Yep.
But I will say, like, the distraction was weird for me because Mandy didn't do, like, a real heel-ish thing where it's like a roll-up and maybe pull the tights. It was like she hit her with a Russian leg sweep and then just did a normal pin. And I was like, that's okay. Because it wasn't even like a vicious move. It wasn't like she hit her with like a finisher or like a super vicious move.
Is that how that ended? I'm having trouble remembering right now.
Not the finish, but that's how she took advantage of the distraction.
Okay, gotcha.
Which I was like, that's weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
She just went for like a Russian leg sweep and then a regular pin after the distraction. As a heel, I'm like, that's really weird.
Okay, yeah. How did the finish of that match go? Did she hit her Bed of Roses finisher?
I believe it was just a roll-up.
Was it a roll-up? Okay, yeah. For whatever reason,
I think she just caught her off guard with a roll-up on a weird way. It was just like it was like a couple minutes after the 5-minute and 4-second mark. After the 5-minute and 4-second mark, it was just a few minutes after that. The 5-minute and 4-second mark of Asuka hitting a Shining Wizard, which was a kick. But yeah, just a few minutes after that, she hit her with a roll up and it was a fine match. It was okay. It was not a Shining Wizard. It was Shining Wizard. It was okay. You know, I'm excited just because Asuka has something to do against someone who, like you said, is climbing the card and is slowly one of the best heel women on SmackDown.
Yep.
Right. And with Charlotte having her crossover right now, there's not really a top tier heel.
There isn't. You know what? I'd like to see Sonya Deville. SmackDown. I'd like to see Sonya Deville pushed into that after Fastlane role and give Sonya versus Asuka at WrestleMania. I'd be down to see
booking.
That. Yep.
Crazy booking. Is there any chance that Mandy beats Asuka And then we get Mandy versus Sonya at WrestleMania.
Lord,
and Sonya turns face.
See, I would be invested in that. I know I would be. I like Sonya Deville. I think she's got a great idea as being a babyface. She's got a huge future there. Is that the right call, though, truly taking it off of Asuka? Because all of the work that they've done on SmackDown Live to make that title feel like a big deal. If you take it off Asuka, you're now putting it back down to second tier. And I don't mean second tier as being like, not good. That's just where they are. They're the second tier, right? They're not the top. They're Asuka, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, Ronda Rousey. You can throw in Sasha Banks up there at the very, very top. Those are the elite, right? The top people and the biggest stars in the women's division. You're talking those 4, those 5, whatever. You can throw Alexa Bliss around in there as well in the top 5.
Let's fly through though, because I just looked at the time and I know you've got NXT. So let's fly through these last 2 and our
but anyways, what I'm just getting at there is like that. That would be kind of fun to see. I would be down for that, but I think they are just under like that point. It's almost like we need one more pay-per-view before WrestleMania to get that story fully told. If you were to do that, I don't know, because you need a match Sonya Deville versus Asuka first. You need a match Mandy Rose versus Asuka, and Mandy would then, beat her somehow, and that would set up the match. Okay, yeah, so anyways, we'll roll through it. Ricochet versus Eric Young. Fine match. Poor Eric Young, as he's just being lost away, doing absolutely nothing. Yeah, massive win there. First solos win of his career inside of the WWE. And, yeah, anything you got to say on that match?
Again, Ricochet impressed. I liked that Sanity was on TV.
Yes.
It keeps Sanity strong because it wasn't a tag.
Well, they're not strong to begin with.
Not strong, but it keeps them stronger than not because it wasn't a tag match. Okay. And but yeah, it sucks for EY, but it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And Ricochet looked great. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Not even getting an entrance, which is kind of Sanity's big thing. So things aren't going well for Sanity backstage-wise either, right? Okay, and then I think we had, what was it? The not triple threat, the 6-man tag team match. Kofi Kingston, AJ Styles, and Jeff Hardy defeating Daniel Bryan, Randy Orton, and Samoa Joe. Love how Daniel Bryan keeps putting over Kofi. Massive there for Kofi to keep beating the WWE champion. He has now secured himself the #1 contendership as of Fastlane. Story is being told really well. The fan support is obviously there for Kofi Kingston. I'm excited. I bet you're excited. Does he capture that championship?
I don't know.
I'm going to say no.
I don't think so. My heart wants it so much because if not now, then when? And he's definitely someone who should at some point. But at the same time, what happens at WrestleMania then? Because I'm just thinking going forward, booking into WrestleMania, because that's all Fastlane is. It's it's just, how can we get what can progress storylines to
how do we get into the Fastlane to WrestleMania is essentially their thought process. Yep.
Yeah, so my whole thing is like I don't, as much as I love Kofi and as much as I think he deserves to be a champion and as much as I think he can puts on amazing matches and everything like that, I don't know what the booking would be going into WrestleMania, and I don't think it's strong enough at this moment to be like Kofi versus someone at like it would have to be Kofi versus Daniel at WrestleMania.
Yep, it would be
in a rematch, right? Because that's the only way that I can really think of, like, unless you somehow got Kofi versus like Andrade.
Yeah,
but
then you're starting to leave the New Day behind Kofi Kingston, right? You're also bringing the New Day along for the ride, so you got to incorporate them into a story somehow.
Exactly. And I think it would be amazing for the pop. I think it would be a great feel and a great like heartfelt thing. Maybe they do it again at WrestleMania. Maybe Kofi loses again at Fastlane in like
through a
like
returning
so close.
Luke Harper or something like that.
Yeah, or something
yeah.
like that. And then maybe we get at WrestleMania Kofi winning it. Like that would be a huge moment.
If they build to it that way, that's a very good way of doing it.
Yeah.
You know, having the Luke Harper, like Luke Harper makes sense to come back, especially when you've got people like the New Day, who's got a trio of people, and you've got Daniel Bryan with Eric Rowan by his side. The natural fit, you could have Luke Harper return to cost him this match at Fastlane, setting up the rematch at WrestleMania, where you could give us a legitimate WrestleMania moment for Kofi Kingston, where fans would be...
And the New Day as a whole.
And the New Day as a whole, yes. And like with that match, you could have a lot of shenanigans. You know, the New Day on the outside of the ring with Luke Harper and Eric Rowan on the outside. They could get involved with each other, right? Like there's a lot of ways you can do that match, and it will probably be pretty good. But I don't think they're going to end up going to WrestleMania with it. It's not looking like this is going to be Kofi Kingston's time. I think if it was going to be Kofi Kingston's time, it should have been a shock win at Elimination Chamber, to be honest. And then you could have had Daniel Bryan win the belt back soon after, whether it was on SmackDown the night, 2 nights after, or whatever. That didn't end up happening, and because it didn't end up happening, I have a very, very tough time believing we are going to get a new champion, especially a babyface champion, right before WrestleMania. I don't think that's going to happen. So that does leave the question, what moves on to WrestleMania? Could be somebody like Kevin Owens coming back to challenge Daniel Bryan. I don't know.
But we'll cover that on
we'll cover
show.
it a different day. Yes.
But the match itself was good. 6-man tag match was fine. It was good. The right winner, the right pin guy, the right pinner. It was good.
One last little thing, one little tiny thing from that match that I really enjoyed, a 10-year payoff almost to the day of Randy Orton yelling, "Stupid! Stupid!" to Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston yelled it back to him in the match after he hit him with a move. Almost 10 years to the day, and it's during one of Kofi Kingston's biggest pushes he has ever had. My God, that is great storytelling right there. He yelled, "Stupid, stupid," right back in the face of Randy Orton. Amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All
right.
Before the match of the week, MVP, real quick, just touch on, just shout out to DX, announced as Hall of Fame.
Yep.
The first Hall of Fame of this year.
Very
Generation
good.
X.
China being included with it. Very good.
And Billy Gunn getting a lot of obviously you have to, but he's the only...
Okay, so Bob just cut out there towards the very end of the podcast. But guys, that is probably going to do it for us here today. We're not waiting for him to come back to say goodbye. So, that is going to do it for us here on the Con Podcast. Yeah, sure, we'll call it that now. The Con and Bob Podcast. Once again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in here tonight. Not sure what point he was about to make, but he's gone. You see him over there if you're watching on YouTube. Really quick, though, once again, my player of the week, or whatever you want to call him, the winner of the week, performer of the week, whatever. Ricochet for me, and I believe his was Ricochet as well. We both told you our matches of the week, and really, really quick to everybody listening, Ty Dillinger has requested his release from WWE. So, probably last time we'll see the Perfect 10 inside WWE. But guys, that's going to do it for us. I've been Con, he's been Bob, and that was the Con and Bob Podcast.